This is the Family Building Podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Ted Yeomans. We hope that the story that you're about to hear will encourage you to engage in the journey called adoption. Welcome to the show. Amber, welcome to the Family Building Podcast. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here and ready to talk about some good stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about a case just in a nutshell where Amber is foster parent. She bonds with this child, Dream, an amazing name. And then the court wants to remove that child after being with her for 14 months. She loves her like her daughter. She's bonded to your other daughter, and to place with a relative on the East Coast that you really didn't have any relationship, never had any actual person-to-person or even face-to-face contact. And the judge issued an order to remove the child. I'll never forget that day as long as I live. I'm sure you won't either.
Yeah, for sure. Never
we
forget
took
it.
the case up. We took the case up to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal agreed with our position and actually published the opinion, which is now law in California, that protects the rights of people in your position who have bonded with these children. And after parents' rights are terminated and we're looking to the adoption really as the permanent plan for the child, the government cannot remove that child unless they prove, and it's their burden to prove, that it's really in the child's best interest. And they were unable to do that in this case. So, Amber, I am so glad. We had the Family Building Foundation. We're sponsored by the foundation. We had our first annual golf tournament, and you were so kind to come out there, and we were able to tell your story with Dream before all the golfers and say, hey, this is the reason why we do what we do at Family Building and why the foundation supports cases like yours. So you're just a wonderful person and just a beautiful heart and spirit. And I'm so glad that you get to share with our audience today. So tell us, what drew you to foster care?
Well, there was like a couple of things that I was looking into before I actually got to foster care. I thought about being, I obviously have been a single mom. I have an older daughter who's 16, and it was on my heart that I wanted to have another child. I felt like it was time. And at the time she was 13. So I said, okay, I think I'm in a good position to try to, have another child. And so I went about it the opposite way and tried to, do, in vitro. That didn't work out. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to try to put my other iron in the fire and see if that one strikes. And so I looked into foster to adopt, which I didn't even know that was like an option. I thought it was just like foster kids, and if they happen to go for adoption, then you just kind of get lucky that way. But I didn't know that there were certain kids that kind of had like a track record with their parents to be fostered to adopt. So I looked into that, went through all the rigorous paperwork and background investigations, and was put on the list. And I was told I was going to wait several months, maybe years, before I got a child that was of, I don't want to say my picking, but that met the criteria that I was looking for. And I was literally approved. And then 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from a placement person saying, hey, we've got a baby in the hospital. And I immediately thought like, oh my gosh, there's been a child that's been hurt or something of that nature. I never in a million years imagined that it was going to be a brand new infant. And as I continued to listen to her, she said, hey, we've got this baby. She's in the hospital, and, she needs a home. It's fostered to adopt. And I just couldn't believe it because they told me it was going to be a year or more to wait. So that happened. And then it just took off like a roller coaster after that.
What did you know about the birth parents? Because when you go into foster care, the birth parents, the state, the law in California and throughout the United States is the first preference is to reunify that child with the child's parents. So what were you told about the parents at that time, and did you expect them to attempt to reunify with Dream?
So what they told me when I first heard about the case was that the mom was on drugs. They didn't tell me much about the dad. They did say that there was going to be no visitation in place, and that this was not the parents' first rodeo. So they were expecting for it to be like a fast track case, as they call it, just given, the past children that they had, removed from them and adopted through the system. So that was all I knew about them. Fast forward, maybe a few months after I'd gotten her, they went ahead and gave services to the dad, which they were really shocked that the judge ruled to give services, because in the past cases, they hadn't offered services to the parents, only to the dad, not the mom. The mom was never given any services. And so I had to go through that process of doing visitation for the first couple of months. And I was able to meet the dad and try to understand, how he ended up in this predicament. And I still didn't really know much about him until I was able to become de facto, to then be able to read all of the information on the case about why, his rights were taken away as well.
So, just for the audience's sake, in certain states across the nation, if parents can, have more than one child in the dependency or the foster care system, and they've lost their parental rights or their right to reunification to a previous child, many states are saying, hey, we're going to do what's called a bypass. We've given you chance or chances before, and you have not changed, and it seems to be the same issue. You seem to be, caught into addiction, and you're not getting better. So we're not going to give you services on this child. So what you just explained, the judge did not give reunification services to the mother, but did to the father. So he visited for a few months, and then did those visits then kind of taper off, and then he lost contact with Dream?
They did. So I think the visit started when she was 2 months, which was I think in end of June or July. And we had visits. It was supposed to be, he was ordered to, do the visits for 8 hours per week. And so we had came up with, we'll do 2 hours, every day or whatever days that worked for him, so that we could accommodate. And so we did that. And I said, hey, just let me know if you're not going to be able to make these visits, because it was a 30-minute commute for me to, get her to the visitation place, because they had to be supervised at the social services building. And so some of the times he would communicate and say, I can't make it, or, I'm going to be late, or can we reschedule? And so once that started happening, I kind of felt like he wasn't as invested. And even before then, I kind of knew that he wasn't as invested, because, we'd come to the visits, he'd, hold her for maybe a minute or two and be like, okay, well, here you go. Or, he'd make comments like, she's in really good hands, I'm not really worried about it. So I kind of just figured like, okay, he doesn't really care that much. And then after, I think in August, the visits just stopped. The communication stopped. I texted to say, hey, just checking in, hadn't heard from you. Like, are we still on for today? And then after a while, the social worker told me that I still needed to show up to the visits of the agreed dates and have a log and have them sign off saying that I showed up and the parent didn't. And I think I had to wait like 20 minutes after the visit start time to, say, hey, I was there and I've done my part. So after a while, then they said, okay, you no longer have to show up anymore, because obviously, he doesn't care to visit anymore and wasn't responding to any of my messages. So therefore they said, you don't have to reach out to him anymore. You're not obligated to respond to him anymore. And we're now moving forward with the next portion of the case. So visits were very short. They lasted maybe a month.
So let's talk about the moment that you first laid eyes on Dreams. And I want to Dream. Let's set this up, because many people that may be watching this might be interested in fostering a child to adopt. But you went in knowing that the parents have a right to reunification, correct?
Yes.
You receive this newborn baby who, the human experience is to attach to that adult caregiver like you from moment one. So that attachment process begins with you. But at the same time, you're wrestling with, I don't know if I'll have this child a month or 2 months or a week or 6 months. Just talk to our audience. How would you advise them to navigate through those emotions?
I definitely would say that this is not a process for the faint of heart. I think that you need to go into the process knowing that the system will tell you one thing, but in fact, there will be several hurdles to jump through. And so I think you need to be prepared for that and be able to waver with the system and go with it. I also think it's really important to educate yourself on the laws and to know what to expect or how it's supposed to work and not let the system really jerk you around. And so I felt like I was able to prevail in this situation just because I did lay in the bed every night reading up on case law, trying to find out, how things were to work, or even talking to other social workers that happened to just be in my family just to kind of get some guidance about that. So I think when you're going into the process and you get to lay eyes on that baby for the first time, knowing like it might not last forever, or it might. I think you just have to be really optimistic. I am a firm believer in being prayed up. So I did a lot of praying, a lot of begging. And there were definitely nights that I just cried in bed, not knowing where this was going to go.
Your daughter, let's talk about, you said your daughter was 13 when you kind of started this process.
Yep.
I've met her. She's just an amazing young lady. When you look back, Amber, over this, really the entire experience, what observations did you make of your daughter, and what impact can this have on other children in your family, good or bad?
I definitely think that it's important that you talk with your kids about this before you make the decision. Ultimately, I think your family needs to be supportive of it. If you have other children, they need to be open to it and receptive to receiving a child and, that's not theirs, and realizing that, hey, you've been an only child for 13 years and there's going to be someone else coming into your life that, is going to, require my attention also. So that was something that we talked about with her. And literally, when I got that call, I think it was a Wednesday, I got the call and they said, we'll let you know by Friday if you're going to be able to come by and pick her up. So I was able to talk to her and say, hey, I got this call. This could potentially be happening. And we were literally on pins and needles all day, every day, just waiting for that phone to ring again saying, hey, she's ready to be picked up. So for us, it was a great experience because I was able to kind of prepare her for, a new baby coming into our house, and also letting her know that it might not be forever. Yes, our hearts will be attached to her. Yes, we will love her forever. But to be prepared for a letdown or a heartbreak, because you just never know, where it's going to go. So my mom, she was really supportive of it. She's a director at our church, so she loves kids. And so it was just like instant gratification, instant love. It was just like, wow, we've got this brand new baby to love and care for, and that we really hope that we get to keep forever. I just think the communication is really key when you're going through this process, just to be very transparent and honest with everybody involved in the process, because I feel like if you get your hopes up too high, like you really can be let down.
Yeah. So yeah, it's quite a balancing act. Let's flash forward or skip forward. Now we're at the stage of the proceedings where the court is looking at the efforts that the parents made or did not make, and they are now terminating parental rights. At that point, you knew that the system, the foster care system and the social services agency was looking at and investigating a relative who was all the way on the eastern seaboard. And so you knew of this possibility. But after they terminated parental rights, the law in California, and I would say in other states also, states that there is a different focus now. It's not the focus on the birth parents or their rights to custody or reunification, but rather it's more of a best interest standard as to where the child is going to be, continue to be placed or be replaced, and what the permanent plan is going to be, the long-term foster care, guardianship, in this case, adoption, because you wanted to adopt Dream. But take us to the day when you first received that call from the social worker giving you news that you did not want to hear after 14 months of loving Dream.
I feel like I knew about the aunt that was trying to do what they called an ICPC, which is like an interstate
compact on the placement of children, right?
Yeah. So I feel like I knew about her early on. It seemed as though there were some maybe back office issues with paperwork or trying to get things done, the process being slow or what have you. So it was always in the back of my head that it was a possibility. But I felt like it had been so long, I think 14 months before everything had finally gone through. And I had read up knowing that once the rights are terminated, she truly isn't like family anymore. However they like to call it. So I knew that if we got to the point where the 2-6 hearing had already happened, that it didn't really matter if the ICPC got approved or not, because she's no longer considered her blood relative anymore. Because now, she's, I guess, a ward of the state. So it was a little disheartening to know about that. But I felt good about it because those things had happened. But I was literally shocked when we finally went to the proceedings and it was up to the judge to decide where she was going to lie, whether it be here on the East Coast. Definitely gut-wrenching.
So do you remember our first conversation when you reached out to Family Building and you were saying, hey, we've been given notice that the county is going to recommend that the child be removed from us.
Yes.
And we had to get into court immediately. Let's just take that moment because, and we're going to talk about the Family Building Foundation here. The foundation is helping fund adoptions when people in your position are not not able to financially afford, the fight that's going to have to take place to keep that child in a secure home. But, what did it feel like to have to call a lawyer? You're kind of doing this on your own. Now you need a lawyer to get involved. They've given you notice that they may remove Dream from your care. What kind of emotional state were you in at that point?
I kind of got an edge up from the social worker that I had. Her and I had a really good relationship. You always hear so many bad things about social workers, but I can't say one bad thing about any of the social workers that I had. She kind of gave me the edge up and said, hey, off the record, you've got to get a lawyer. Find a lawyer and find one fast. And so I can't ever remember how I found the Family Building. I feel like I was doing Google searches, calling around to different places saying, hey, here's what's happening. Here's what I need help with. And they said, oh, that's not our specialty. Try this number, try that. And I think somebody recommended, we can't help you, but I know who can. And I feel like that's how I stumbled upon the Family Building Foundation, or the practice in general. And when I got that information and I landed in your guys' lap and I gave you guys all the information, you're able to read about it, pull all of the documents, and you were just like, we can totally help with this. And so I was scared. I literally was scared. I always feel like, going to court and lawyers, it's all very scary because you just don't know. It's just a scary place to be. So I did a lot of crying, that's for sure. Like a lot of crying, a lot of worry, a lot of sleepless nights, just because I didn't know where this was going to land. And I think by this time, like she was maybe like 18 months by then. And I was like, this is my baby. There's no way I should be fighting for her for someone that doesn't even know her, that has literally made no effort to be a part of her life until, 18 months later. So that was just terrible. It was hard.
Sure. I remember being in court with you that day, Amber. And one thing I really appreciate about you, and I appreciate with our other clients, is we really try to love our opponent. We really reached out to that aunt, and the judge began to, listen to the evidence and listen to the arguments of county counsel. I know that it was not in their heart, your social workers, attorneys, to remove a Dream from your home, but this judge was very much in favor of relatives, and there was a large number of relatives on the East Coast that this child had never met. And I remember the judge even getting emotional on the record and just putting her hands, her head in her hands, and just struggling. And I asked for a break, for about a 15-minute break, and I said, Your Honor, let my client reach out to the aunt. And I remember that phone call was a very important phone call outside the courtroom. And you offered, listen, if I adopt Dream, I will fly back there. I will do whatever I can, and we'll go back there even 3 times a year. You will know her. She will always respect and honor you and know the entire family. And I remember you pleading with the aunt, please don't make the judge make this ruling. And she said, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to roll the dice and see what the judge rules. And so it was very disheartening, but walking back in, I believe that the judge really knew that you had a good heart, that you really tried your best to find that middle ground with this relative. And then the judge dropped the bomb. And we didn't know which way she was going to go, but she said, I'm going to follow what's called the relative placement preference law, and I'm going to remove her from your home, Amber. And I'll never forget that moment in court. I think that we felt the air come out of the courtroom. The baby's attorney, Dream's attorney, was not in favor of removal. I'm not even sure that the county council who represented social services really wanted to see that happen. And we asked for a stay of that decision. We said, Judge, please don't make the child move today. I asked for 15 days so we could consider going to the Court of Appeal. And the judge honored that request, but she said, no, I'm going to give you 10 days. So you better get on it. And I remember leaving that courtroom and going downstairs to the tables outside the courthouse and sitting down with you. And I had an intuition to just start rolling my camera. And I said, Amber, I'd like to film a question and your answer. And you said, that's fine. And you were a bit emotional. I think just shell-shocked, like you're going to lose this daughter. And I said, Amber, I think we can beat this if we go up to the Court of Appeal. I think we can get this judge reversed. But it's going to take money. It's going to take an appellate attorney that specializes in this to take it up. It's probably going to cost $5,000. And I asked you, Amber, are you able to come up with that money? And what was your response?
Not at all. Not at all.
And I just remember this moment of like hopelessness, like,
defeat.
And I think if it makes me, it just makes me emotional right now to think of that moment. To think, Amber, that green paper would separate this child from the only mother and only sister that she's ever known is, I don't know what the word is, repulsive. It angers me.
Yeah, disgusting.
But thank God we had started the Family Building Foundation. And just in faith, I said to you, Amber, in that moment, we're going to get the foundation to cover this. We have to get the foundation to cover this. And do you remember those words to you, Amber?
I was literally shocked. I felt like the Lord himself had come down and said, hey, I've got you. I'm going to carry you through this. And you were like his angel saying, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to get the Family Foundation to cover this. And I was like, what's the Family Foundation? Like, I'd never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. So I was literally shocked, but also like super relieved, like, okay, like not all hope is lost. That wind was taken out of me, and then that instantly put back in me, a little breath of fresh air when you.
Amber, just for a moment, just share anything else, any other thoughts from your heart of hearts to the donors that sacrificially give, sometimes each month, sometimes larger gifts. We're doing galas at the end of the year to raise money for people exactly like you and Dream. But just speak to them, and if you could try and put your word, thanks into words. Can you do that right now?
Of course. The foundation, the donors, those that give to those families that can't afford to pay those hefty fees to get the process going and to try to fight for their case. You literally have changed my life. Very thankful for everything that you guys have done for us, financially, emotionally, just being so kind through the process and not making anybody feel bad for not having the money. It's just an incredible feeling to be helped by those that, are more fortunate to be able to have the extra funds to help those in need. I feel like no good deed goes unpunished, and I wish nothing but all God's glory and blessings to those that have donated. It's an incredible foundation. I can't believe it.
you're going to hear story after story on this podcast of where the foundation did come in and really without that assistance, these kids, their generational story would totally change. And I'm going to have you share, just the impact that Dream has had in this world, in your family, in your life, in your daughter's life in a moment. But if you'd like to support the Family Building Foundation, I would encourage you to go to familybuildingfoundation.org and connect with us. We're doing golf events. We see golf events going on across this nation. If you want to help us host one of those, we're doing galas and creative events to have fun. We can do a pickleball tournament, whatever it takes to get people out and to give and have fun at the same time, dance and have some fun, but at the same time really raise money for a great cause. But before I ask you about Dream, I do want to tell our audience and the donors that we found a great appellate attorney that works with us. We filed what was called a writ of mandamus, and we went and took it as an emergency appeal. We got it filed. We told the Court of Appeal, the justices there at the higher court, that the trial court judge had only given us 10 days and we need them to act immediately. And sure enough, I think on day 9, we got that order. I'll never forget, I think I literally jumped. I'm sure you did a lot more than that. But they said, we are staying execution of that order. The child will not be removed, and we want further briefing. And we thought, oh my gosh, we're getting some traction. And sure enough, they treated that as an emergency appeal. It was briefed on all sides, vigorously fought in the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal came down with a decision after your name, Amber G, In re Amber G, and that case was a published opinion and became law in the state of California, which now protects, as I mentioned earlier, the rights of these children and these caregivers who, after parental rights are terminated, it's a best interest standard, and the government has the burden of proving that it would be in the best interest of the child to remove them, in this case from the only family that she's ever known. So again, for our donors and our listeners, to me, I think adoption is, would you accept if I said this? This is kind of a brutal comment, Amber, but do you see that adoption is so much bigger than you, Amber, and what you want? I mean, it's amazing. You have this beautiful little child, and she is just a beauty. She is incredible. But there's such a bigger cause going on, right?
Yes.
It restores a broken generational line. And when you put these kids in a beautiful, loving home like yours and your daughter's home, these kids become world changers, And so just give our audience a little bit of what kind of impact has Dream had and this story and your adoption had on those around you, your family, others who are interested in adoption? Go ahead.
It's actually really interesting. Once I posted that I had adopted her online, social media, how many of my friends came out messaging me saying, oh my gosh, I've been so interested in wanting to adopt. I didn't know where to start, didn't know who to talk to, how to do that. So it was really kind of amazing to be able to have those conversations with people that had no idea about it or didn't know where to start or were afraid about it, to have those real conversations and to just kind of be almost like a voice for other people, like, hey, you can do this. It's going to be hard. If there's anything you need from me, I'm here to help and to support and to talk about it. And I think I've even sent a couple of friends your way that were looking to adopt and different things of that nature. And I was just like, talk to me about it. I know the best lawyer that can really get stuff done for you. So it's just been almost like a world impact, more than just like what it's done for my family and my heart. Like, our heart is huge. She's made a huge impact on our family, but it's just incredible that I've been able to do this and share my story and to reach other people that are interested in it, but just didn't know where to start. So I think that's the bigger reward. It's so fun and interesting to see people coming out and saying to me like, oh my gosh, like you're so incredible for adopting. And I was just like, I don't want the accolades for it. I was just like, I just want to be able to make a difference in a child's life that, you know, wouldn't have necessarily had the best life, you know, should she have not been adopted and been reunified with her parents. So it's just rewarding. It's nothing but the grace of God that has given me this opportunity and for us to have met and, you know, our faith aligned. And I think that played a big part in it too. So I just feel like it's just such a blessing to be able to do this. And if I could do it again, I would. Even though how hard it was, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Well, Amber, we love to answer that question. I think I asked you that question at the final adoption hearing. Was it worth it?
100% worth it. It definitely made me stronger. I was already strong, but I was like, I didn't know I was that strong. It made me more informed about the process. And it kind of made me wanted to be like an advocate, a court advocate for other parents that are out there that don't know how to navigate the system or not sure where to start, to really be that person to be like, hey, here's the steps you should take. Here's what you should do. Here's what paperwork you need. Here's what to expect. It really makes me want to be able to be more involved in the court system because it's not a fair system, unfortunately, and it's very hard to navigate. So I just think that it's just made me who I am today for sure. I would do it again.
It's the best system we know of in the world, like so many other things in this great country. It may not feel fair, but again, it is the system that you need to work through and persevere through, and it's worth it because you get this beautiful daughter at the end that's a world changer. So we're so delighted to have this time to talk with you, Amber. I know that you're motivating others. Anybody that sees this, I hope and we believe and pray that you will be motivated to step in that gap for a child like Dream because it's worth it, right?
Yep, it's 100% worth it. I look at her every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by. I look at her like, wow, I can't believe you're mine. I can't wait to tell her the story one day when she's old enough to understand of like all the craziness that went on. But I was like, every second of it was worth it. Best phone call I ever got that December that we won our appeal. Best phone call. Well,
Amber, we were really honored to have you as part of this podcast, and let's hope it goes viral.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.